Marooned on Kepler 61c. A sci-fi story. Part 1: The Swamp That Breathes. The shuttle was already sinking when Lyra came to. Cold water lapped against her cheek, thick as syrup and smelling of metal and rotting flowers. The cabin lights flickered in frantic pulses, illuminating the tilted interior in stuttering frames. Something groaned, metal or the swamp itself, and the whole craft lurched downward another few centimeters. Lyra! Hey, stay with me! Hands gripped her shoulders. She blinked through the fog in her vision and found Kale crouched over her. His face streaked with mud and blood, his eyes wide with the kind of fear he tried to hide but never could. "We're taking on water," he said. "We need to move. Now." The words snapped her awake. She pushed herself upright, wincing as pain flared along her ribs. The shuttle's forward viewport was shattered, half submerged in opaque green water. Outside, the world was a shifting mass of fog and floating vegetation, illuminated by the shuttle's dying lights. "Where's the others?" she rasped. Kale hesitated, a heartbeat too long. "Joran's out," he said. "Alive, I think. I dragged him onto one of the islands. Haven't found Sarah yet." Lyra's stomach tightened. Sarah had been strapped in beside her during descent. She turned, scanning the cabin. The seat was empty. The harness hung loose, sliced clean through. Something had cut it. "Help me up," she said. Kale hauled her to her feet. The shuttle groaned again, sinking another few degrees. Water surged across the floor, swirling around their boots. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before this thing goes under," Kale said. "Grab whatever you can." They moved fast. Lyra snatched the emergency pack from under her seat, slinging it over her shoulder. Kale retrieved the medkit and a flare gun. The fog outside pressed against the broken viewport like a living thing, swallowing the world beyond. A sound drifted through it, a low, resonant vibration that made the water tremble. Lyra froze. "What was that?" Kale didn't answer. His jaw clenched. The vibration came again, deeper this time, rolling through the swamp like a distant drumbeat. The water around the shuttle rippled outward in concentric rings. "Move," Kale said. "Out. Now." They climbed through the shattered viewport and into the swamp. The floating islands. The water was waist-deep and warm, thick with drifting strands of bioluminescent algae that clung to their clothes like cobwebs. The fog was so dense it felt solid, muffling sound and swallowing distance. Shapes loomed and vanished within it, trees maybe, or something pretending to be trees. Kale led the way toward a cluster of floating vegetation mats, islands. The survey drones had called them during orbital scans. Up close, they were less islands and more tangled masses of roots, vines, and fibrous plant matter woven into buoyant platforms. Joran lay on one of them, unconscious but breathing. His leg was twisted at an unnatural angle. Lyra knelt beside him. "He needs splinting." "Later," Kale said. "We need to get off the water." Lyra looked around. "Everything is water." "Not everything." He pointed deeper into the fog. A darker shape rose there, a larger island, maybe stable enough to hold them. The swamp vibrated again. This time the sound was closer, much closer. Lyra swallowed. "Kale, something's moving under us." "I know." The water bulged. A slow, deliberate swell. Something massive passing beneath. "Get him up," Kale said. Together they lifted Joran, careful not to jostle his leg. The island dipped under their combined weight, then steadied. Lyra's boots sank into the spongy surface, water seeping up around her ankles. The fog shifted. Something brushed against her leg. She jerked back, heart hammering. But it was only a vine drifting in the water. Only a vine. The swamp vibrated again. Not a vine. "Go," Kale said. They moved. The fog that lies. The larger island was only 20 meters away, but the fog made it feel like a kilometer. Sound warped inside it. Their footsteps echoed strangely, as if coming from behind them. Once, Lyra heard her own voice whisper her name from somewhere off to the right. She ignored it, Kepler 61c's atmospheric analysis had warned them. High-density aerosols, refractive fog, acoustic distortion. But reading a report and walking through it were two different things. "Kale," she whispered. "Do you hear?" "Yes," he said. "Don't respond to anything that isn't me. Or Joran." Kale hesitated. "Joran's unconscious, right?" The fog thickened around them, swirling in slow spirals. Lyra felt the air grow colder. The swamp vibrated again, and the island beneath her feet shifted slightly, drifting sideways. "Kale," she said. "The island's moving." "They all move," he said. "The whole swamp migrates. That's why the orbital scans were inconsistent." "Where is it migrating to?" Kale didn't answer. The silence was worse than anything he could have said. The first night. They reached the larger island, a broad, uneven platform of interwoven roots and moss, anchored by a cluster of towering stalk trees. Their trunks were pale and smooth, like bone, and their leaves hung in long, ribbon-like strands that swayed despite the still air. Kale set Joran down and began assembling a makeshift shelter using emergency blankets and the remains of a broken panel he'd salvaged from the shuttle. Lyra paced the perimeter, scanning the fog. The swamp vibrated again, but farther away now. Whatever had passed beneath them earlier was moving on. For now, she knelt beside a pool of still water near the island's edge. Bioluminescent organisms drifted beneath the surface, glowing faintly blue. She dipped her fingers in. The water was warm, too warm, like something was heating it from below. "Lyra," Kale called, "help me with the splint." She joined him. Joran groaned as they straightened his leg and secured it with two rigid strips from the emergency pack. "He'll need antibiotics," Lyra said, "and real medical care within 72 hours. Kale didn't look at her. "We'll find a way." She didn't push it. Not yet. The fog thickened as night fell. The temperature dropped sharply. The swamp vibrated again. Not a single pulse this time, but a slow, rhythmic pattern. Like breathing. Lyra shivered. "Kale, is the swamp alive?" He didn't answer. The fog swirled. Something moved at the edge of the island, a shape tall and thin, almost humanoid. Lyra froze. "Kale," she whispered. He turned. The shape vanished. "Fog trick," he said. "Don't trust your eyes." But she had seen it, and it had been watching them. The thing beneath. They took turns keeping watch. Kale insisted on taking the first shift. Lyra lay down beside Joran, wrapping herself in an emergency blanket. The ground was soft and uneven, pulsing faintly with the movement of the swamp. She closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come. The fog whispered around her, carrying fragments of sound. Her name, spoken in her own voice. Kale's voice calling for help, Joran's voice screaming. None of it was real. She repeated that to herself until the whispers faded. At some point, exhaustion dragged her under. She dreamed of sinking, of warm water closing over her head, of something enormous rising beneath her, its shape too vast to comprehend. She woke with a gasp. Kale was crouched beside her, shaking her shoulder gently. "Your turn," he said. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "Anything? Just fog tricks." He didn't sound convinced. Lyra stood, stretching stiff muscles. The fog was thicker than before, glowing faintly with reflected starlight. The swamp vibrated again, a long, slow pulse that made the island tremble. "Kale," she said quietly, "it's getting closer again." "I know. Do you think it's following us?" Kale hesitated. "I think it's curious." "That's worse." He didn't disagree. The carnivorous garden. Morning came without sunlight. The fog simply brightened from charcoal to pale gray. Lyra checked Joran's pulse, steady but weak. His fever had risen. "We need antibiotics," she said. Kale nodded. "There might be salvageable supplies in the shuttle. It's underwater." "Not completely. The tail section might still be above the muck." Lyra exhaled. "Then we go." They left Joran under the shelter, wrapped in blankets. Lyra marked the island's edge with a strip of reflective tape so they could find their way back through the fog. The swamp vibrated again. Lyra felt it in her bones. They moved. The floating islands shifted beneath their feet, drifting slowly in the same direction. A subtle but constant pull. The fog distorted distance, making every island seem farther away than it was. They reached a cluster of smaller islands connected by thick vines. Lyra stepped onto the first one and froze. The vines twitched. "Kale," she whispered. He looked down. The vines were moving, slowly, deliberately, curling toward her boots. "Back," Kale said. She stepped back, but the vines surged forward, faster now, wrapping around her ankle. She yelped and kicked, but the vine tightened, pulling her toward the island's center. Kale drew his knife and slashed at the vine. It recoiled, spraying a burst of green fluid that hissed as it hit the water. The island shuddered. The vines writhed. "Run!" Kale shouted. They sprinted across the nearest stable island, the carnivorous vines snapping at their heels. One lashed out, grazing Lyra's leg. Her skin burned where it touched. They didn't stop until the vines were swallowed by the fog behind them. Lyra bent over, panting. "This planet hates us." Kale wiped the green fluid from his knife. "It's not hate. It's ecology. That's not comforting. It wasn't meant to be." The broken beacon. They found the shuttle's tail section half submerged in a pool of murky water. The metal was twisted, scorched, and covered in a thin layer of moss. Lyra climbed onto the wreckage, prying open a maintenance panel. Inside, the distress beacon lay in pieces, shattered beyond repair. She stared at it for a long moment. Kale climbed up beside her. "Any chance?" "No," he exhaled slowly. "Then we're on our own." Lyra didn't argue. She rummaged through the compartment, retrieving a sealed med case. Inside were antibiotics, painkillers, and a few emergency nutrient packs. "Let's get back to Joran," she said. Kale nodded. They turned to leave. The swamp vibrated again. This time, the water around the wreckage bulged upward. A slow, rising swell. "Kale," Lyra whispered. "It's right under us." The swell grew. Something enormous shifted beneath the surface, displacing water in a wide circle. Kale grabbed her arm. "Move!" They leapt from the wreckage onto a nearby island just as the water erupted behind them. A massive shape broke the surface, not fully visible, just a suggestion of scale. A ridge of dark, armored plates. A glimpse of something like an eye the size of a helmet. A low, resonant bellow that shook the fog itself. Then it sank again, leaving only ripples. Lyra stared at the water, trembling. "Kale, what the hell was that?" He swallowed hard. "The reason the swamp migrates. The drift." They hurried back toward Joran, but the islands had shifted during their absence. The reflective tape marker was nowhere to be seen. "Kale," Lyra said. "We're drifting. All the islands drift," he said. "We just need to find the right one." The fog swirled around them, whispering in familiar voices. Lyra ignored it. They crossed 3 islands, then 4. The swamp vibrated again. A slow, rhythmic pulse. "Kale," she said quietly. "It's following the migration." "I know. Which means we're drifting toward it." "I know." They moved faster. Finally, they found the reflective tape. Half submerged, the island tilted at a new angle. Joran lay where they'd left him, shivering under the blankets. Lyra knelt beside him, injecting antibiotics. His fever was dangerously high. Kale stood at the island's edge, staring into the fog. "It's getting closer," he said. Lyra didn't ask how he knew. She could feel it too. The swamp vibrated again. Stronger this time. Closer. The entire island shifted, drifting in the direction of the unseen colossus. Lyra looked at Kale. "We need a plan." Kale nodded slowly. "I think," he said, "the swamp is taking us to it." Part 2: The Swamp That Remembers. The island drifted faster than before. Lyra felt the acceleration in the subtle tilt of the ground, in the way the water around them pulled in a single direction like a slow, inevitable tide. The fog thickened, swirling in long ribbons that clung to the stalk trees and coiled around their ankles. Kale paced the perimeter, jaw tight, eyes scanning the shifting gray. Joran slept fitfully, feverish and mumbling. Lyra knelt beside him, checking his pulse again. "He's stabilizing," she said. "But he's not out of danger." Kale didn't respond. "Kale," she said more firmly, "talk to me." He stopped pacing. "We're drifting toward it. We don't know that." "We do." He pointed into the fog. The water there bulged upward in slow, rhythmic pulses. The same pattern they'd felt all night. Breathing. Lyra swallowed. "We need to steer the island." Kale gave a humorless laugh. "With what?" "Our hands. There has to be a way." He didn't argue, but he didn't agree either. The swamp vibrated again. This time, the vibration didn't fade. It continued, a low, constant hum that resonated through the island's roots. Lyra felt it in her teeth. "Kale," she whispered. "Something's changing." He nodded slowly. "It's waking up." The root bridge. The fog thinned just enough for them to see the shape ahead. A massive tangle of roots rising from the water like a natural archway. The island drifted straight toward it. Lyra frowned. "Is that a bridge?" Kale shook his head. "No, it's a funnel." "A funnel to what?" He didn't answer. The island slid beneath the arch of roots. The air grew warmer, heavy with the scent of wet earth and something sweet, almost intoxicating. The roots above them pulsed faintly, as if carrying fluid. Lyra reached up and touched one. It was warm, alive. She pulled her hand back quickly. The island drifted onward, passing under the arch and into a wider expanse of swamp. The fog here glowed faintly blue, illuminated by clusters of bioluminescent spores drifting through the air like tiny lanterns. "It's beautiful," Lyra murmured. Kale didn't look impressed. "Beauty here is a trap." He wasn't wrong. The spores drifted closer, clustering around them. One landed on Lyra's arm, tingled, then dissolved into her skin. She gasped. Kale grabbed her wrist. "Did it burn?" "No. It just felt strange." "Keep your mask on," he said. "We don't know what these things do." She adjusted her respirator, tightening the seal. The spores continued to drift, gathering around the island like a glowing cloud. Joran stirred, mumbling. Lyra knelt beside him. "Joran? Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open. "Lyra?" His voice was weak, slurred. "Where are we?" "Still on the island. You're safe." He blinked slowly. No, we're not." Lyra exchanged a glance with Kale. "What do you mean?" she asked. Joran swallowed. "I saw it." "Saw what?" "The thing under the water." Lyra felt her skin crawl. "When?" "In my dream," he whispered. "But it wasn't a dream." Kale crouched beside him. "Joran, listen to me. You're feverish. Your mind is." "No," Joran said, gripping Kale's sleeve with surprising strength. "It's awake, and it knows we're here." The swamp vibrated again. Stronger, closer. Kale stood abruptly. "We need to move." "Move where?" Lyra asked. "Anywhere but here." The whispering trees. They lifted Joran between them and began moving across the island, searching for a way to steer it or at least slow its drift. The stalk trees loomed overhead, their ribbon leaves swaying in a wind that didn't exist. As they passed beneath one, Lyra heard a faint whisper. She froze. "Kale," she whispered. "Did you hear that?" He shook his head. "Fog tricks." "No, it came from the tree." She stepped closer, placing a hand on the smooth trunk. The whisper came again. This time she recognized the voice. Her own. "Lyra," it breathed. "Come closer." She jerked her hand back. Kale grabbed her arm. "Don't listen. It sounded like me." "That's how it works." "How what works?" He hesitated. "The ecology here, it's adaptive, reactive. It mimics stimuli." "You're saying the trees can imitate voices?" I'm saying everything here can imitate something. The whisper came again, louder this time, more insistent. Lyra, help me. Her breath caught. It wasn't her voice anymore. It was Sarah's. Kale saw the look on her face. Lyra. No. She might be alive. She's not. You don't know that. Kale's jaw tightened. I found her harness cut clean through. Whatever did that didn't leave survivors. Lyra's throat tightened. We can't just assume. The tree whispered again. Lyra. Please. Sarah's voice. Begging. Lyra stepped back, shaking. We need to get away from these things. Kale nodded. Agreed. They moved quickly, avoiding the stalk trees. But the whispers followed them, shifting from voice to voice. Joran's, Kale's, Lyra's, Sarah's. The fog distorted the sound, making it impossible to tell where the voices came from. At one point, Lyra heard Kale call her name from behind. She turned. Kale wasn't behind her. He was ahead, helping Joran. The voice behind her whispered again. Lyra. She didn't look back. The heart of the swamp. The island drifted into a clearing, a wide, circular expanse of open water surrounded by towering stalk trees. The fog here was thinner, revealing a massive structure rising from the center of the swamp. Lyra's breath caught. It wasn't a structure. It was a creature, a colossal organism half-submerged, its surface covered in ridged plates and bioluminescent veins. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically, the source of the swamp's vibrations. Kale stared at it, pale. That's what's pulling us. Lyra swallowed. What is it? Some kind of central organism. A keystone species. The swamp isn't just migrating. It's converging. Converging on what? Kale pointed. The creature's bioluminescent veins brightened, pulsing in a pattern that spread outward through the water, through the roots, through the islands. A signal. A call. The swamp vibrated in response. Lyra felt the island accelerate. Kale, she whispered. It's drawing us in. I know. We need to get off this island. I know. How? Kale looked around, scanning the water. We swim. Lyra stared at him. Are you insane? Do you have a better idea? She didn't. The creature pulsed again. The island lurched forward. Joran groaned, clutching his head. It's calling us. Lyra knelt beside him. Joran, stay with me. He shook his head weakly. No. You don't understand. It remembers us. Lyra frowned. What do you mean? Joran's eyes opened wide, terrified. It remembers everything. The swamp vibrated again. The creature's bioluminescent veins flared. Kale grabbed Lyra's arm. We jump. Now. The water that sees. They didn't have time to think. Kale lifted Joran onto his back and ran to the island's edge. Lyra followed, heart pounding. The water below churned with bioluminescent organisms, glowing in swirling patterns that almost looked like eyes. Lyra froze. Kale. I see it, he said. Don't think. Jump. He leapt. Lyra followed. The water closed over her head, warm, thick, almost viscous. The bioluminescent organisms swirled around her, clinging to her skin, her clothes, her hair. She kicked upward, breaking the surface with a gasp. Kale surfaced beside her, Joran clinging weakly to his shoulders. Swim! Kale shouted. They swam. The water vibrated around them, pulsing with the creature's rhythm. The bioluminescent organisms clustered around their limbs, slowing them down. Lyra kicked harder. The island drifted past them, drawn toward the creature. The creature pulsed again. The water surged. A massive shape moved beneath them. A shadow, vast and slow. Lyra's breath caught. Kale. I know. The shadow rose. The water bulged. Something enormous brushed against Lyra's leg. Not a vine. Not a root. Skin. Warm. Alive. She screamed and kicked away. Kale grabbed her arm. Keep moving. They swam toward a cluster of smaller islands, unstable but better than open water. The shadow rose again. The water erupted behind them, A massive ridge of armored plates broke the surface, sending waves crashing outward. The creature bellowed, a deep, resonant sound that shook the fog itself. Lyra felt the sound in her bones. Kale reached the nearest island and hauled Joran onto it. Lyra scrambled up beside them, gasping. The creature sank again, leaving only ripples. Lyra collapsed onto the spongy surface, trembling. Kale knelt beside her. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. What does it want?" Kale looked out at the water. "I think," he said slowly, "it wants us to go with it." "Go where?" He didn't answer. Joran did. "To the center," he whispered. "To the place where the swamp begins." Lyra stared at him. "How do you know that?" Joran's eyes were distant, unfocused. "It showed me." "When?" "In my dream." Kale shook his head. "That wasn't a dream." "No," Joran agreed. "It wasn't." The swamp vibrated again. The island beneath them shifted, drifting, always drifting, toward the center, toward the creature, toward whatever waited beneath the fog. Lyra looked at Kale. "We can't keep running." Kale nodded slowly. "No," he said. "We can't." The swamp pulsed again, louder, closer, calling. Lyra took a deep breath. "Then we go to it." Kale stared at her. "Are you serious?" "We don't have a choice." Joran nodded weakly. "It's waiting." Kale exhaled. "Fine, but we do this on our terms." Lyra met his gaze. "Then let's find out what this swamp wants." Part 3. The Swamp That Knows. The island drifted steadily toward the creature at the swamp's center. Not fast, not slow, purposeful. Lyra felt the pull in the water, in the roots beneath her feet, in the air itself. The fog thickened again, swirling in spirals that seemed to follow the rhythm of the creature's pulse. Kale stood at the island's edge, jaw clenched, watching the water. Joran lay between them, breathing shallowly, eyes half open but unfocused. Lyra knelt beside him. "Joran, stay with me." He blinked slowly. "It's close." "We know." "No," he whispered. "Closer than you think." The swamp vibrated again, a long, slow pulse that made the island tremble. Kale exhaled. "We're going to it." Lyra nodded. "Then we need to understand what it wants." Kale gave her a look. "You think it wants something?" "Everything here wants something." Joran shivered. "It wants to remember." Lyra frowned. "Remember what?" Joran's eyes opened fully, wide, terrified. "Us." The descent. The island drifted into the clearing again, the same circular expanse of open water they'd seen before. The creature loomed ahead, half submerged, its bioluminescent veins pulsing in slow, deliberate patterns. Lyra felt the pulses in her chest, syncing with her heartbeat. Kale stepped back. "It's communicating." Lyra nodded. "I think so." Joran groaned. "It's calling." The creature pulsed again. The island lurched forward. Kale grabbed Lyra's arm. "We need to decide now. Do we go to it, or do we run?" Lyra looked at the water, at the massive shadow moving beneath the surface. "There's no running." Kale didn't argue. The island drifted closer. The creature rose. Not fully, just enough for them to see the ridged plates along its back, the massive, slow-moving gills, the faint glow of bioluminescent organs beneath translucent skin. It was ancient. It was alive. And it was aware. Lyra felt something brush against her mind, a sensation like a memory she didn't recognize. She gasped. Kale grabbed her shoulder. "Lyra, I'm fine," she said, though she wasn't sure. The creature pulsed again. The island stopped, dead still. The fog parted. A path of roots rose from the water, forming a bridge leading directly to the creature's surface. Kale stared. "It's inviting us." Lyra nodded. "Then we go." Kale hesitated. "All of us?" Lyra looked at Joran. He was already sitting up, eyes glassy, staring at the creature. "It wants me," he whispered. Lyra shook her head. "No, you're injured. You stay here." Joran smiled faintly. A sad, distant smile. It already knows me. Kale stepped between them. He's not going alone. Lyra took a deep breath. None of us are. They lifted Joran between them and stepped onto the root bridge. The roots pulsed beneath their feet, warm and alive. The creature waited. The memory chamber. As they approached, the creature lowered itself slightly, revealing a massive opening between two armored plates. A cavernous space lined with bioluminescent tissue. A chamber. A mouth. A mind. Lyra swallowed hard. Kale, are we really doing this? We don't have a choice. Joran stepped forward on his own, drawn by something they couldn't see. The chamber pulsed, glowing brighter. Lyra followed. Kale came last. Inside, the air was warm and humid, filled with drifting spores that glowed faintly. The walls pulsed with slow, rhythmic contractions, like the inside of a living heart. Lyra felt a pressure in her mind. Not painful, but insistent. A presence. A question. Kale gripped her hand. Lyra, something's happening. She nodded. I feel it. Joran stepped into the center of the chamber. The walls brightened. The spores swirled around him, forming patterns, shapes, images. Lyra gasped. She saw the shuttle, the crash, the swamp, the creature beneath the water. But the images weren't memories. They were observations. The creature had been watching them since the moment they arrived. Kale stepped back. It's showing us what it saw. Lyra shook her head. No, it's showing us what it remembers. The spores shifted again. New images formed. Not of them, of others. A different shuttle, different people, different screams. Kale's breath caught. We're not the first. Lyra felt her stomach twist. It's been doing this for a long time. The images shifted again. A figure stood on a floating island, alone, terrified, reaching toward the sky. Then the swamp swallowed them. Kale clenched his fists. Why is it showing us this? Joran answered. Because it wants us to understand. Understand what? Lyra asked. Joran turned to her. His eyes glowed faintly with reflected bioluminescence. That it's dying. The truth beneath. The chamber pulsed again. Faster now, more urgent. The spores swirled, forming new images. The swamp, the islands, the fog, the creature at the center. All connected, all part of a single organism. Planetary network. A living ecosystem with one mind. Lyra felt the truth settle over her like a weight. The swamp isn't migrating, she whispered. It's collapsing. Kale stared at her. What? It's not drifting toward something. It's drifting away from something. The spores shifted. A new image formed. A storm. Massive. Magnetic. Tearing through the swamp. Ripping apart roots. Scattering islands. Disrupting the creature's bioluminescent veins. Kale exhaled. The magnetic storms. Lyra nodded. They're killing it. Joran stepped forward, touching the glowing wall. It's trying to survive. Lyra felt the creature's presence again. Stronger now, desperate. It brought us here, she said slowly, because it needs help. Kale shook his head. We can't fix a planet. No, Lyra said, but we can fix a beacon. Kale froze. The shuttle's beacon is destroyed. Yes, Lyra said, but the creature has a network, a signal system, bioluminescent communication across the entire swamp. Kale's eyes widened. You think we can use it to send a distress signal? Lyra nodded. If we can amplify it, if we can trigger a pulse strong enough to reach orbit. Joran smiled faintly. It will help us. The chamber pulsed again. Agreement. Kale exhaled. Then let's do it. The signal. The creature guided them deeper into the chamber, to a massive bioluminescent organ pulsing with energy. Lyra placed her hand on it. A surge of warmth spread through her arm. She felt the creature's mind, vast, ancient, fading. She felt its fear, its hope, its plea. Kale connected the emergency power cell from their pack to the organ, using stripped wires and conductive gel. The organ brightened. The swamp vibrated. The fog outside swirled violently. Joran stepped back, clutching his head. "It's starting." Lyra nodded. "Trigger it." Kale activated the power cell. The organ pulsed. Once, twice. Then, a massive wave of bioluminescent light surged outward through the swamp, racing along roots, through water, across islands, into the fog. The swamp answered. Every stalk tree, every root, every organism, all pulsing in unison. A planetary signal. A cry for help. Lyra felt tears in her eyes. "It worked." Kale exhaled. "Now we wait." The rescue. Hours passed. The swamp dimmed. The creature weakened. Joran slept, breathing shallowly. Kale sat beside Lyra, staring into the fog. "Do you think they'll hear it?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "They have to." The swamp vibrated again, but not from the creature. From above. A distant hum, growing louder. Kale stood. "Lyra!" She looked up. Through the thinning fog, a light appeared. Then another. Then the silhouette of a rescue craft descending through the atmosphere. Lyra exhaled shakily. "They heard us." The creature pulsed weakly. "A farewell. A thank you." Lyra placed her hand on the chamber wall. "We'll tell them," she whispered. "We'll make them understand." The creature pulsed one last time. The rescue craft hovered overhead, lowering a harness. Kale lifted Joran. Lyra climbed beside them. As they rose into the air, she looked down at the swamp, at the drifting islands, the glowing roots, the massive creature sinking slowly beneath the water. Alive, but fading. Kale touched her shoulder. "We made it." Lyra nodded, but her eyes stayed on the swamp. "We survived," she said softly. "But we weren't the only ones who needed saving." The fog closed over the creature. The swamp fell silent, and the rescue craft carried them into the sky. This is the end of the sci-fi story, Marooned on Kepler 61c. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.